Hey there, bibliophiles. Today we are breaking it down with McLeod Chapman, which means things are going to get horrific in the best possible way. Author of books such as Wake Up and Open Your Eyes, The Remaking, Whisper Down the Lane, and others, Clay has mastered the ability to make you laugh while also making you feel disgusted on so many levels. And one of the fun things is when he agreed to be on the pod, he said to surprise him, and challenge accepted. Hey Clay, how are you
Oh,
doing?
oh dear. Now I'm scared. I
Don't be
think
too
I'm ready.
scared. Can I actually scare you though? I feel like that's a really high surprise, maybe, scare no.
I mean, I'm a little scaredy cat. I'm one of those fellas that it doesn't take much. I jump pretty quickly, I will admit.
Okay. Well, let me start out with this one though. This one. In Wake Up and Open Your Eyes,
Hmm.
you may or may not remember, but there was a certain bookstagrammer that saw you referenced a character named Nathaniel Cassidy on page 314.
Uh-huh.
And that certain bookstagrammer tagged both of you, saying she didn't believe in coincidences. And she received three emojis from the both of you. So, I have to ask now, coincidence or
Was
intentful?
was that you? Were you the
That was me.
bookstagrammer? Oh, it all comes full circle. There you go. That's amazing. Good catch.
Yeah,
It wasn't Nathaniel Hawthorne that I was referencing, for
that's
sure.
true. It did give me a giggle, and I think that same night you had uploaded a photo where you two were actually hanging out, and I was like, oh, they are intentionally messing with me now.
Can you imagine? That would be amazing and maybe a little terrifying.
I mean, at least you two know that you think the same then, because three emojis from the both of you separately. It made me laugh.
Wouldn't it be funny if we actually had each other's phones and we only respond to the other's tags? So Nat's got me and I've got him. That would be if we body swapped, if we did like a what is that? Like a big or a what were the body swap movies of our childhood? Or my childhood. I'm a little older. I'm old. 2,000 years old. 18 again. What else was there? I'm going off on a tangent. But Nat and I have actually swapped bodies. I am, in fact, Nat. This is a face off. You're talking to Nathaniel Cassidy right
My
now.
god, the devil works hard, but Clay and Nat work harder.
Mm, it's true. It's true. The devil never had it so easy with me and Nat on the prowl.
That's true, this is delegation, actually. Well, that kind of segues into Wake Up in Your Eyes. That was actually the first book of yours I read.
God, and you came back for more? You have no one to blame but yourself then. Like you had an out. You were like you could have been one and done and you never had to come back for me again. But you
No, but
no.
I loved it, and I wanted to bring up the fact that in the first 150 pages, there is more horror that happens than other authors do in an entire book. Was that intentional? Like you sought out to do that? Because this is just on another level, the first few chapters.
Yes, that was 100% intentional. It's funny when I first started writing it, the middle section, part 2 was ultimately that in my mind had been what the book would be because that's all I really that was the kind of crux of it, like watching this nuclear family, this kind of like atypical like American family succumb to demonic possession by way of their screens. And my editor, God bless her, was like, "This feels a little suffocating. We need to crack open the world a little bit. We need to get into the world and kind of see a more macro view of the world." And that's where part 1 and part 3 came from. It was I'm like thinking of like all of these different movies that like Evil Dead
Mm.
2, the remakes. Like there's a certain kind of like hit the ground running and it just never stops. And I wanted that first 100 pages to feel unstoppable. Like I wanted it to feel like it was one large kind of like mounting kind of tension, spring that was just getting coiled tighter and tighter and tighter until it all bursts, snaps.
Yeah, and that I think was absolutely accomplished because I went into it personally like, oh, I think this is a coping mechanism that Clay is giving us for those dreaded Thanksgiving dinner conversations. But it turned into something so much more than that. And so, it sounded like you had a plan for the middle and then you handled the beginning and the end as you went and got feedback.
Yeah, yeah. It's in the rear view at this point in my brain, so I'm trying to think like what came first. But like I lived in that middle section. I was like carving out that middle section, like to the kind of you know infinitesimal kind of granular degree, which is why I feel like there's something kind of really like suffocating about that center middle section, and which is why part three just feels like such a lark to me, and part one feels like such a I don't know, like I just wanted the what is that when you're riding the roller coaster and it's just the like and then like you're off and running.
Yeah, because at the end of part one, it's like, wow, we have a very understanding of how high the stakes are and how much this is affecting people.
Mm-hmm.
How did this all come to be? And then part two just kind of leans into that so naturally. It's like you can't help but wonder how.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because it's really cruel of me because that center section is just so slow. It's just like so uh, like I think that a lot of readers, not all, but a lot, kind of resist that center section because it's kind of like, oh, we've just gone on this intense trip, and then all of a sudden you're telling us to like back it up however many days, weeks, months, and then watch it slowly, methodically start to kind of like the pace is just so different.
Yes.
And I feel like there's a challenge there for some readers who, they want to get back on that roller coaster. And I'm like, let's get on the tunnel of love. Let's just go slow and just like make it like.
See, I think it's necessary though to get a full appreciation because like especially with topics that book addresses, it's people just randomly go, "How did we get here?" Like things are just so bad randomly and it's like, "No, no, no. We did not just randomly get here. There have
Yeah.
been signs." And so I think that retrospective, I don't know, maybe I'm in the minority, but I kind of enjoyed because sometimes you don't. I mean, and to be fair, you're extra cruel because at the end, everything is twisted again, and it's like, well, everything you assumed is now also you're left to guess because of what happens. So you're especially cruel in that book. Don't worry.
Yeah. 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 I think people just wanted like either a pat on the back or it's tough because like I think the book doesn't allow a lot of readers to feel like encouraged. Like I don't think there's like much hope in this book, and that's by design. But that's kind of how I was feeling, have been feeling, and it's tough because a lot of people want to come to these books as an escape to kind of like get out of the world, and here's this kind of cudgel of a book that doesn't I don't know just doesn't really do that for folks.
Yeah. Yeah, and I put in my review too. It's like if you think this is just an attack on one political party, like you've proven to me that you didn't read the entire book because those last chapters are so insightful as to I think once again talking to it's not how we wake up and it's like how did we get here moment. There's these ripple effects that spread farther than we could ever imagine, and I think those last chapters really were a great representation of how that happens.
Your
Even if I'm
lips
left
to a
not
million
understanding.
readers' ears. Like preach it to the choir, the Bookstagram choir.
Well, so talking about fans and obsession, I also read the
Oh,
remaking.
that's so sweet. That's a lark in comparison to Wake Up and Open Your Eyes and pretty much everything else. That is like a walk in the park. That's just like PG vibes.
It is, but I think it. So it felt like a love letter to the horror industry and especially the movie industry. But at the
Totally.
same time, it was kind of a slap on the wrist because we have a culture that's obsessed with retelling tragedy. So it was this parallelism I wanted to talk to you about. Like, are you telling us, like, be careful what we obsess over? Was that just accidental? What are you trying to tell us, Clay?
I mean, I think it's that kind of question of like, who gets to tell our stories? Um, you know, God, like that's going back to like 2018, maybe. Um, and
Surprise!
no, it's wild because um, I can't remember if there was like a specific film. I was kind of like really kind of interested in this idea of. Did you ever watch The Ring? Did you ever see The
Yes.
Ring? Love The Ring. I remember watching the original movie from Japan called Ringu when it made its way overseas. God, in 1999, maybe
Mm-hmm.
2000, and it was a amazing movie that felt, kind of watching it at that point on, God, I think it was like maybe VHS even, which is even kind of like mirrors upon mirrors. But that notion of when it was announced that Ringu was going to be remade into The Ring, I I was like, how do they translate the kind of cultural, like so much of what makes Ringu resonate is that it kind of focuses on this very specific culture's notion of death and
Mm-hmm.
ghosts and how that kind of permeates everyday life for people living in Japan. I was very curious how that would translate into an American film where we don't, you know, we death is a part of our everyday life in its own kind of way, but not the same way as it is in Japan. And I just thought that would be really interesting. And I had that idea of like, how would Sadako feel if she knew that her story was being remade in America in this English version? And then I was just like, oh wow, what would that be like? And like, and it just kind of like spiraled from there. No pun intended.
Yeah, because I went into it and I was like, okay, let's see. And then the first chapter, I didn't know what to expect because honestly, my vibes were this is like if the Lorax was folk horror. You just got this person being like, I'll tell you a story, but I need
Yeah.
a little sip of something. And then just watching it, how it evolves like through generations and stuff. I think it was also especially important, like Amber's involvement
Hmm.
because it's not just the same story, it's also evolving, which adds like a dangerous tone to it as well.
Yeah. Man, I had nothing but fun writing that book. It was pure vibes. I always feel like it's good to be a little critical of who gets to tell our stories and like me and like me most of all, like I'm like I want to put myself to task in terms of like who gives me the right to tell this story. And I think like that any writer worth their salt should have that kind of self-reflexive analysis in terms of like why they're telling the stories they want to tell, what gives them the privilege, the right to tell it. And I just wanted that to be there kind of in the forefront of it. But yeah, fan culture, film culture, like I love horror movies. I love being able to kind of participate in the periphery of film and movies and TV and so it is a love letter, but like and, with a little bit of like a maybe it's a little side eye. It's like I see you, warts and all. I see you for what you are.
Well, and two, I feel like horror as a genre has changed so much recently. The Sinners and all the awards that movie has won. So, as a horror author, are you liking the changes you're seeing as a whole? Does it make you be like, oh, this was nothing like how it was? Like, I want to bring some of that back?
I mean, I can't I think it is nothing but positive for the genre at large, whether that's film or publishing. We're kind of living in boom times for the genre, which is great because I think that is more reflective of how we are kind of in the rest of the world. Like horror does well, horror thrives when maybe things aren't necessarily feeling as kind of safe or sound or kind of, stable. And the parallel of those two things of like, how do things feel over here versus how they feel over here? Like, horror is there to kind of help guide us through that. And I think that is reflective in terms of Oscars. I mean, good Lord. Angel Down, this amazing novel by Daniel Kraus, just won the Pulitzer. And like that is in of itself a genre book. And I just, I think it can't be anything but good for all authors, all filmmakers. But the biggest shift that I think is actually truly genuinely the best positive kind of factor is that you get a much more diverse range of storytellers. It's not all guys who look like me. It's there are different genders, races, sexual preferences. Like it's you can find the stories that you gravitate towards more, and it's not just one particular column of authorly type.
Agreed. And I like it because we're seeing different types of authors. I think also the fan base too, like if you say like, oh, I'm really into horror movies, they expect that you wear all black and you've got like all these piercings and some of the whisper down the lane-ish vibes, assumptions could be made, but it's like, no, I mean, we're just people just like everybody else, right?
We tie our shoes just like everybody else. Our combat boots, our Doc Martens.
I was about to say the Doc Martens are laced and ready. So this one's going to be a little specific. So I noticed in the remaking, we were introduced to Amber Pendleton, and there was a tombstone marked Brian Pendleton, and I was like, oh, that's interesting since we never found out who her father was. And then things got really weird because in Whisper Down the Lane, there's a mention of Benjamin Pendleton. And I'm like, is this like a weird fascination with the name? Is there an inside joke with a friend we don't know about? Like, this is a lot of Pendletons.
It's so funny. There is no actual real life Pendleton, but Pendleton is my go-to for like when if Benjamin Pendleton ever pops up in a book, that's someone that's Benjamin Pendleton. Like it's just like
it is
someone. It's like that kind of like cringy, like you don't want to really hang out with Benjamin Pendleton, and it kind of fluctuates. It depends on the story, but it's either that he's a target or he's targeting. Like he's either a bully or like there's just something kind of like amorphously like untoward about a Benjamin Pendleton. But years ago now, like well over a decade now, I wrote this trilogy of horror adventure novels for Disney, and I had a Spencer Pendleton in that book. And oh my God, actually no, now that I'm thinking about it, there was a Billy Pendleton in a story I wrote like decades ago called Bridesmaid. And that was in a book called Nothing Untoward that came out in 2017. Yeah, Pendletons have been around since the dawn of my career.
I'm ready for like the Pendleton biography a la Clay McLeod Chapman. Like just, no, let's watch it be like this secret society family. It's just like planted across the country.
They're just kind of like a little lame. Like they're just like, it's that like, oh, like Billy Pendleton just drags you down, and it's like he slows the group down, and he's like the first to die. Or Benjamin Pendleton's the bully who always picks on you and takes you. Like there's a Spencer Pendleton, a Billy Pendleton, and a Benjamin Pendleton. Like those, and I guess Brian from Remaking, which I totally forgot about. So Billy, Benjamin, Brian, and Spencer. Those are the Pendleton boys. God.
If you see Pendleton, watch out.
Yeah, you'd kind of have to.
Well, and so Whisper Down the Lane is the one that I read most recently. And the chord that really struck with me was the topic of interviewing minors and the framing and the language. Even the character's name, Kinderman, kinder man. And it's like, are we? Was that like intentionally a topic you wanted to address at that time? Or did it was kind of like a helpful mechanism to...
Well, I mean, you absolutely wanted to kind of focus on that. Like, I mean, Whisper Down the Lane is one of those books that I had a kind of momentary obsession with the Satanic Panic era. And in doing the kind of deep research dive, you read these transcripts of child psychologists, police officers, detectives, lawyers, and they're all interviewing children, young children. And this is speaking specifically of the McMartin preschool trial, which went from like early 80s to early 90s. And it was such a kind of devastating moment in history, because it was basically like these teachers were accused of doing something that they did not do. And for well over a decade, they were either put on trial in literal court or in the court of public opinion. And there was no evidence, and like the whole kind of notion of why these teachers and administrators were kind of put under such scrutiny was because of the testimony of these children. And they were like, what, like 5, 6, 7, like young children, young enough to not understand or kind of comprehend the kind of the potency of words and what they're saying. So if an adult, and as a parent, I do this to my kids all the damn time, where it's like, did you brush your teeth? Did you brush my teeth? Yes, I brushed my teeth. Did you really brush your teeth? No. Like, you coerce kids into the confession. McMartin preschool trial is an actual historical kind of shining example of how terrifying that kind of coercion of confession can be, and how human lives were at stake. And I wanted to kind of thread that narrative, that thematic thread, through Whisper Down the Lane, because to me the whole core concept of that novel is, what if you took one of the children from an incident much like the McMartin preschool trial, where kids were coerced into lying and fabricating these lavish, like inherently absurd narratives of Satan worshippers in public schools. If you took one of those kids who didn't know any better about what they were saying, but like a white lie, and how that white lie just kind of like avalanches and kind of like becomes this momentous thing in legal, cultural, American history. And fast forward 30 years later, like who would that child be as an adult, as a parent themselves? And would those lies come back to haunt them? And I just found that fascinating. So yeah, those transcripts were in the book was so much fun to write. So much fun.
Yeah, because I think it really shows the positive intent, especially from Sean's perspective of like, it really seems like this is what my mom wants me to say, and I'm 5. So that's as far as his cognitive skills can go.
Yeah.
You're
also heartbreaking.
No. What's heartbreaking is what you did. You showed us, he was tearing the envelope. Sean tore the envelope. And I was like, okay, like this is it. This is everything. And then I turned the page. And you're like, no, Sean tore the envelope, but I'm going to tell you everything that was in the letter anyway. That was cruel.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a surprise for myself as well. I was like, where's this going? Oh, here we go.
I'm not done yet.
Yeah. Surprise.
Yeah. Because I think too, Like I'm still nervous for Sean. Cause I even thought to myself, like, God, where would he be in another 20 years?
Yeah,
Like, I don't know if he's still doing okay, you know?
yeah.
I worry about him.
I would too, to be honest. Like, just because he's our narrator doesn't mean he's the best guy. I think that, like, we see the kind of the damage that his past has kind of done to him, and then to go through this in the present day, where we leave him, I don't think he's going to be doing well. I think I would give him a wide berth if I were you.
Well, also just the irony of how badly he wants to be a father. Like, that's just throughout his chapters.
Yeah.
And then where it lands, it's like, you know?
Wah wah. Sad trombone.
Yeah, but I also think that is. I always joke that, like, romance girls on the internet, and I love y'all, don't come after me. I love seeing y'all happy. But y'all talk about there's no, like, you guys have happily ever afters. And you're not the only genre to have a happily ever after. In horror, I've seen some books where it's, if you take a step back, I think there's a happily ever after still. It's just not romantically inclined.
Yeah. I'm working on a horror romance. I'm writing this novel now. Or it's done, but it comes out in August. And it's a romance novel, and it has to play by the rules of romance, the romance genre. And so, like, there had to be a happily ever after. And what's wild is that, and my editor kind of, like, showed me the light where it's like, you can have a happily ever after in a book, and it doesn't have to be happy for everybody. It's a happily ever after for these two. And that little kind of adjustment, it's like, oh wow, everything is happy now. you know?
Yes. Oh my gosh, I was lucky enough to get a copy of Headlights by CJ Lead.
Such a
And
good book.
isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't cry. I was bawling my eyes out. And my husband's like, what's wrong? I'm like, it has a happily ever after, but it's not the happily ever after I wanted. And he's just like beyond confused. Like, you read horror. How is this happily ever after?
Yeah. Kills me. That book is CJ's the best. Like, she's you know, a shining light within the genre, and I wish she wrote faster because I want another one now.
CJ, lovingly, hurry it up. But no, I think that also plays into how we get the wide variety that we do. I mean, horror romance is a newish thing happening. Like Butcher and Blackbird series
Yeah.
just went insane. I think there's a movie coming out now. Like,
Is there really?
yeah,
Man,
they'd started
of course
filming.
there is.
But I did want to ask too, for your, because I know you've got a lot of things coming up, you know, a little bit of the horror man's, maybe a little inspiration behind that book, when we can anticipate it, how we can pre-order.
Yeah, I mean, Devil Inside, it's going to come out really, really soon. It comes out in August, August 11th. And it is available for pre-order wherever you. It is. Yeah, I got high hopes. I really hope people find it, read it, enjoy it. It's just me telling a love story. I'm like such a sucker for love that, like, having an ability to, like, just tell a straight up love story and then give it to readers to read, and then have those readers tell me, like, damn, this is dark. All of a sudden just being like, oh, I guess this is what love means to me these days.
Well, and the romance girlies, you get them hooked with a trope. So without spoiling, what are some basic high level tropes like grumpy sunshine?
Wow. Um, I can I go through them? I mean, the ultimate trope is demonic possession. It's basically a guy meets a girl, No, I'm going to back that up. It's a guy meets a demon who is possessing a girl, and complications ensue because that's a threesome right there. That's like a triangle of I I I like you for you, but do you like me for who I am on the outside or who I am on the inside? And they have to navigate that kind of tense conundrum. So I should be more well versed in this, and you're gonna put me on the task. But like, I know there's like fish out of water. There's like star-crossed lovers. There's like stranger comes to town. Like meet like what is it like hate each other at first, but then fall in love with each other later.
Enemies to lovers.
Enemies to lovers. I what is this? This is like demon to lover.
This is how to handle a potential throuple. Trying to determine if we're a throuple.
I mean, or it's so funny. I mean, I shouldn't give anything away, but it's like that thruple. It starts off as a thruple, and then it's like, yeah, I can't say anymore. I'm not gonna say anymore. It is how do we navigate the dicey, thorny waters of you and me and you.
Well, I also saw your announcement for Mr. Lonely Hearts.
Mm-hmm.
That's exciting.
Yeah, I'm gonna be with Tor Nightfire, which is super exciting. That comes out in March, and maybe these two books should kind of like make good companions to one another because Devil Inside is nothing but love, even if it is toxic, evil, demon love. And Mr. Lonely Hearts is how do you like survive? Like, how do you break free of like a toxic like love or it's a fun book. I'm kind of in the mindset of it right now because I'm like rewriting it as we speak. I'm in the edit zone. So before we got on the call, I've been doing nothing but tweaking and revising that book all morning. But yeah, imagine a young woman. Her name is Jennifer, and Jennifer just got out of a really bad relationship.
God, was it a Pendleton?
No Pendleton in the. Well, no, I'm gonna put one in there just for the heck of it. But not bad dude, bad relationship, and she's free and her like on her own for the first time in years, and it's really hard to kind of remember like, gosh, who am I? I've been in this partnership for so long, so like, what am I now? Like, who am I now? And it turns out that that's like it's really hard for her, and that is the worst time for a malevolent, toxic, evil manifestation presence to come back into her life and say, I will take that loneliness away and make you happy and give you whatever you want, and all you have to do is tell me that you love me. And turns out that's not great.
So immediately, 2 books added to my TBR, pre-ordered immediately. And I think that's such a fun turn of events because, now I feel cruel because it's like always working on edits for his latest books and I pull out things from like 2017, 2018 for the mental gymnastics.
No, like, honestly, like, genuinely, like, that makes my day because, I mean, all we want is somebody to read these gosh darn things. Remaking it's getting up there. Like, that came out, I think, in 2019. These books, they have their lives. Like, sometimes they live long, robust lives. Sometimes they live very small, very quiet lives. And to be here 7 years later and like be talking about the remaking, 5 years later, and still be talking about Whisper Down the Lane, like that's a gift because most people will be like, what? I've never heard of that book. When did that come out?
Exactly, because I think too, I started this podcast as a love letter to the book social media space because I think there is something, well, we still got our issues, don't get me wrong. There is something special about fiction, non like these books and, when I kind of I happen to hear about Wake Up and Open Your Eyes and that led me through like, well, let me read Clay's catalog and it's just for every story that makes it on this podcast, there's probably so many other people that we just don't even know about that are sharing into it. And I feel like it's these episodes and Bookstagram, Book Talk, BookTube, where it's like, let's share that joy together. Like, it doesn't need to be so separated, which I feel like it can be. It's really just to share the joy of these stories because there's always a little truth in everything, and someone can relate to something.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I have a toehold on Bookstagram and book talk and like if I was a little more well versed and better at it, I would be more well versed and better at it. But to me, social media is there as an opportunity to just let's talk about books we love. I don't need it to talk about books I don't love. I just want to talk about things I'm excited about. Yeah, it's a lot easier for me to speak of the things that I am excited about and that get me really happy. And it's great when it could be about books, and specifically spooky books.
When I saw the reel of you running down New York in your rendition, I think you're doing Bookstagram great.
Trying. Got to get people buying books somehow. It's a lot easier to make a fool out of myself than it is to just say, buy my book.
I think that's what makes there's some authors who, which I get it, they're just like respectfully at a distance. You see my face on the end cover and, but then there's also some authors that engage and just, have fun with it. Like that, isn't this all supposed to be fun, where it just feels more, accessible to kind of understanding the person behind the pages. So it's always appreciated.
Yeah. Yeah, right? Like I don't have any larger, grander point, but it just seems we're all just trying to figure this out, right?
Amen.
And yeah, I have no answers. No answers. I come to you a clean slate.
I have all the questions.
Oh.
I'll always have all the questions, but if you're looking for answers and you're listening to this, I'm so sorry. All right, Clay. Well, for those that are unfamiliar and want to stay in the loop to understand all of the great new things, and when you decide to make reels that make all of your fans laugh again, where can they follow you to stay in the know?
I'm trying all the social media platforms for sure. I have a website that I just updated, which I'm very relieved about because it was pretty old. You can find me at claymcleodchapman.com. But yeah, like I'm on Instagram and Threads and Blue Sky and I'm doing them all poorly. But I'm just doing them. Like let's see if this works. I put my neuroses on Threads. I put and I put everything else on all the others.
I have never been more compelled to join Threads until this very moment right now.
I mean, it's so weird because, it used to be back in the day, however many years ago, Twitter used to be a place where you could kind of like talk, I thought. And I really liked early Twitter. And then that kind of dissolved and became kind of its own thing. And now there's been this kind of like dissolve or this kind of bifurcation, like everyone's kind of like dispersed to all these different social media platforms, and there isn't like the one that's like, oh, now you have to be here, that kind of offers direct kind of like conversation or banter, and Threads I think kind of for me comes the closest to that, though it also there's like maybe it's just my algorithm, but it seems like everybody seems really angry on Threads all the time. um, so, but that's the place I have chosen at the moment to kind of like, oh, I have a thought. I'm going to put it here, for better or for worse. Those are where the thoughts go. Because I don't want to post them everywhere. I don't want to be the one who like, I have this like really like pithy thing I'm going to say, and I'm going to just post it here, 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 and here. Like that just seems so prefab in my mind. So just like channel it all to one. And that for me is Threads.
Listen, when you have a voice like you do, the audience will follow where you go. But then again, this is coming from someone who's doing this as a hobby. I don't have any official answers.
But you have all the questions. That's great.
I do.
That's a start.
Well, and this is me finding out, because I don't know, kind of like what's discussed in the remaking, as ill advised both directors were to make the film. I do admire they were like, I'm gonna frickin' try. It just sometimes there's only a few ways to find out about something. How were they to know? How were they to know it was this who Ketchum, poor bastard, but he found out really quickly, and so this is, I don't know, will I end up as Ketchum? Who knows what we'll find out. Indeed. Well, thank you so much for talking, Clay. I really appreciate it, and I cannot wait to get my hands on both books coming out in the next year.
You're the best. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on and chatting with me.
Of course. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.